Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this session, the panel. So today we're going to discuss how Japanese creative education can be a role model in the world. So as a Kickstarter, we're going to have a kind of short introduction from each panelist. So please introduce yourself and tell us about your experience around creative education and your bonding with Japanese culture and society. 3 minutes each, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Kenya. Thank you so much, G1, for inviting me and especially for having this panel. It's such an important question, I think, and often an overlooked one. My experience of creative education and Japanese culture actually intertwined because much of my own creative education from the age of 18 onwards was actually in Japan. I studied here as a Monbusho na Monkasho postgraduate student and have degrees from an art and design university and also Musashi no Bijutsu Daigaku, Musashi no Art University, and also the University of Tokyo, including a doctorate, which was not in design because there were not really design doctorates here at the time. I think it's really, and the reason, so obviously this was within the Japanese educational system in both an art and design school and a university. At the same time as doing that, I was once called a yurei gakusei, or a ghost student, because I was also doing a traditional Japanese music training at the same time. So I'd actually do okeiko in the morning. I learned something called jiuta soukyoku. So it's an Osaka-style traditional music. Koto, shamisen, and voice, and I was doing that and getting teaching licenses in the morning, and then in the afternoon I would go to the university. So I was not a very good role model for students, but I think it actually gets to the heart of what creative education can be. So it was a really interesting combination of theory and practice in hindsight, and my career as an educator, which is now 25 years, has very much been bringing the theory and the practice together. So practice, what we'll talk about in design as reflexive practice, education and research. You plan, you do, you reflect, you learn, and you do it again. So it's learning through doing, but there's an element of reflection and contribution as well. So after the longest time I've spent in sort of one place was in London, where I taught at the Royal College of Art. Again, working in both the design school and in the history program with the Victoria and Albert Museum. Again, sort of bringing practice into the theory and theory into the practice. And I'm now at RMIT University in Melbourne, where I teach onto a design, innovation, and technology master's, which is a transdisciplinary master's looking very much at product, system, service, and innovation with a particular focus on regenerative systems. So not just being sustainable, but actually giving back or putting back in or improving conditions. And I'm also deeply involved in our doctoral program, which is around senior and mid-career leaders looking to think differently around innovation and change in their respective areas. And my own research is very much around gender, performance, organizational culture. Yeah, that's probably.
Thank you, Sara. All right, go ahead with Mars.
Thank you, Kenya. So I think maybe the theme of today is about kind of pushing the boundaries of creative education. And I think I want to introduce myself by saying that all my career so far has kind of been pushed by accidental discoveries. So I studied engineering at first, and in the second year of my engineering degree, someone showed me a brochure for a place called the Royal College of Art where you could study this thing called design. When I read about it, it was like you create ideas and they become products. I almost fell over. I thought, this is what I've been looking for all my life. So I went to study design from that after I finished my engineering degree. And then one day when I was at the Royal College of Art, my tutor put this notice on the board saying, here's a summer internship at this place called Sekisui Chemical in Osaka in Japan. And the only thing I knew about Japan at that point was karaoke machines and sushi, and I'd never tried sushi. So I thought, okay, I'll give that a go. Went to Japan and fell in love with the place. Went back to Europe and came back to Japan a couple of times, married a Japanese lady, eventually ended up running the course I studied at the Royal College of Art, which is a joint course with Imperial College, and it was exploring the boundaries of innovation. So how do we make people more creative and get creative ideas out in the real world by exploring new technologies, science and engineering and so on. So again, it was like, we weren't trying to create designers, but somehow break down the boundaries of what the discipline was and explore new ways of designing. At that time, I met Kinya, and several years later, he introduced me to the University of Tokyo, which was creating a new platform. Like, how can we put design at the center of science, technology, and engineering research? That was irresistible. So, I ended up coming here in 2017 and starting a thing called the DLX Design Lab, where we put designers and scientists and work together to try to create new value through design. And then another accidental happening, the president came up with this idea for a new College of Design, which we'll tell you about today. So basically right now, from studying thermodynamics in Exeter University to being here at the University of Tokyo, accidentally discovering creativity, education, and Japan on the way. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Miles.
Right. Thank you very much for having me today. I am Daijiro. So let me briefly introduce myself in 3 minutes. Is that it? So it's a bit like Sarah, but immediately after my high school years, I moved out from Japan to study abroad, London, to do my bachelor's, master's, PhD all in one go. Bachelor's at the University of East London. But I was first studying fashion design with marketing, and then focused on the fashion design thoroughly after 1 year. Then I realized that something was missing, so I started thinking about going to the postgraduate level. And then I joined the Royal College of Art. We are all alumni of the college. After doing my master's years, I began to realize that there is something weird going around my specialism, which was fashion design. As you can imagine, fashion design has its own very particular agenda in its design process, designing for the ideal, human body figures for unrealistic purposes. So I began to question the design process, and that led to my PhD about the design methods and processes. And through that endeavor, I realized that there are so many things I can do beyond the scope of the fashion design. So after my PhD years, I came back to Japan to start doing my own sort of interdisciplinary design projects and so on and so forth. Not necessarily on the fashion, but also about the service design, design research, circular design, so on and so forth. That led me to work at several different universities. One of them was the Kyoto University Design School. I worked there for 2 years, alongside with the Keio University SFC, Shonan Fujisawa campus, where I worked for 7 years before I moved out from there to work at the Kyoto Institute of Technology, which is kind of like a unknown, rather unknown national university, specifically on the design, technology, engineering. There I'm working as the sort of interdisciplinary design researcher. So my graduates from master's and PhD degrees can include those who went to the Japan Digital Agency, or they working for the universities like a Kyushu University or a Ritsumeikan University, or working at the different sectors, not necessarily in public, but also the private, in different disciplines. So that's where I am, and thank you.
Thank you. So today, as I told you, we're going to dig into the what kind of uniqueness we have in this Japanese creative society, and how we can leverage them to nurture new leadership here in Japan. So I think the U Tokyo College of Design is one of the best examples to discuss about today's topic. So Miles, can you share the concept or planning behind the U Tokyo College of Design? Why Todai U Tokyo is planning to start up new department and college, and what kind of graduate are you going to nurture? Song.
Sure. So the U Tokyo College of Design, the initial purpose is not to start a new design program, because there are already so many really good design programs out there, both in Japan and internationally. But it started with the purpose to create transformative, equitable change in society. So the university president, essentially, this is his vision, was to create a type of graduate who will have that kind of power to make change in society. Students who are intelligent, and I guess, yeah, all U Tokyo students have intelligence, that's hopefully no doubt. But to arm them with the ability to investigate social issues, challenges and opportunities, and the skill to not only understand them, but translate that understanding into ideas, and those ideas into actual deployable solutions. So of course, design is one powerful tool or discipline that enables that synthesis from understanding into ideas and ideas into solutions. So that's why it's the College of Design. And I think from our internal perspective as well, we want to see Japan understand or have a deeper perspective on what design is. Design is often thought of as the kind of styling or aesthetic element, finishing of a product or service. And we know designers are more capable of involvement in strategy and development far beyond just aesthetics. So we also have a mission to change the understanding of the word design over the years. But the general principle is also to break down the borders of the discipline itself. So our students will come on board. It's a 5-year program, so you get a bachelor and master's degree. And of course, we're going to teach them about design, all kinds of design: industrial design, graphic design, interaction design. Both thinking processes and also hands-on skills. What we want to borrow from the world of design is the mindset that it's no good just to understand a problem. You have to create a solution to it, and you have to deliver that, and you have to see the world's response to that solution. So sure, they're going to create software, hardware, policies, community ideas, all sorts of different outputs will be created through their skills of learning about design. But alongside that, we want to unlock the power of the university. So they'll be able to take classes from any of the faculty across the university. So from engineering, from medicine, from law, from literature. So a student may be taking a class in machine learning one moment, and the next class in Japanese literature, and then one after that about gene editing and CRISPR, and then perhaps something to do with philosophy. They're going to follow their own curiosity, and this wide-ranging knowledge will filter down into their creative work. So we're hoping to make a different kind of designer. In fact, we don't really think of them as a designer. It's more of a change maker or future shaper. But design is absolutely core to the success of this model. Doesn't start till 2027, so we're still very much in the evolution of this idea. But the hope is, to create a different kind of graduate, a change maker who will create transformative change in society. In the future, we don't want to judge ourselves, our success by the number of, prime ministers or the number of astronauts or the number of Nobel Prize winners. We want to judge success by the change that our graduates make. So that's going to take some time, but we think it's very much worthwhile, the investment in making a really great program. Although this is the RCA Mafia, the Royal College of Art Mafia, we're not trying to bring in kind of a European or an American way of thinking. We're trying to build a program from a very unique, this is U Tokyo delivering it. This is centered in the city of Tokyo, in the country of Japan, in the region of East Asia. So we want to bring all those important cultural and unique perspectives into the program itself as well. So that is our mission, and I hope in the coming decade or so we reached that success.
Thank you, Miles. Sarah, do you have any question or comment on to Miles?
I might start by giving a bit of context because I think it's a really exciting proposition, and I'll give you my conclusion, which is that I think digging into the uniqueness of the proposition of in Tokyo, in Japan, in East Asia will be what brings success to the initiative. So as of the QS Global Rankings in design, so QS Global Rankings in design 2025, the top 2 are in the UK. Then it's dominated by the US, with some big research universities in Europe, 2 in China, 1 in Singapore, and the top 20 has nobody in Japan. And if you think about the, design from Japan is probably amongst the most recognizable, famous, and loved in the world. So there's a big opportunity here. There's a big gap as well, right? So Todai is 18th in the world for engineering this year. So, Japanese universities are well recognized. A number of other universities are well recognized in these rankings, but design is not. So, and I should say these rankings are as much about reputation amongst other universities and employers. So, the other bit of context is the acceleration in innovative design education, especially in Asia. So I've just spent a week in India at IIT Delhi and IIT Hyderabad, talking with colleagues, everyone from the people in the government digital transformation agency to design professors to really bright students who are, out of 10,000 applicants, they're the ones who are getting in to a class of 10 people. There's incredible innovation happening in, we hear a lot about China. India is now the world's largest country, and they're investing really strongly in education innovation. So there's a really competitive context, but I also think the proposition you're setting out is really exciting. And I hope we can dig in more into what that uniqueness is in this panel.
Thank you, Sarah. Daijiro-san, do you have any words?
Yes. I think it's to do with the designing the pluriverse rather than the universe. Universe is really like it appears to be like a really global concept, but it's actually the Western concept. Pluriverse, the plural shapes of the universe, is the kind of world that we are witnessing today, whether it is the sessions that we had in the morning or the whatever. So this pluralizing the universe is the kind of thing that we are witnessing. The value that the Japanese creativity is offering to the world, I think, is one of the suggestions of the presence of the pluriverse, in that it has this very different and unique, for example, like alternatives to the development, alternatives to the Western notion of the development, the continuous growth, no limits. We have already witnessed this limits of the growth, especially from the regional area where I'm from yesterday. I primarily live and work in Kyoto at the moment, so that's the kind of thing I'm witnessing every day. But still, there's a new value that's coming out from that, and people are beginning to appreciate that from what I do normally in the context of fashion design. It's especially in the field of luxury fashion business management. Craftsmanship is the really big term. It's a huge term, but that's the kind of thing that the people in Kyoto are so associated with on a daily basis. And people almost like forget about its value. But nowadays, we are beginning to witness that the small-scale craftsmanship with the obvious authenticity associated is creating a new value. So this kind of value was obviously the kind of, how can I say, 19th century kind of value, or maybe like 18th century value, art and craft kind of value. So it's being heavily criticized, especially in the age of the modern development. But now that we need to reassess that value, I think it's about the time that the places like a University of Tokyo, We'll revisit the value, revisit the interrelationship between the human, nature, craftsmanship, and so on and so forth, to reorient the way we understand about the very notion of the development, perhaps.
Thank you. Yeah, Miles, do you have any response to them?
I suppose just, responding particularly to this point about craftsmanship is like, the important point of starting the College of Design in a place like Japan is to leverage off the incredible skills of traditional crafts and craftsmanship, and that attitude as well, the focus on quality and finishing anything really, really well is an important point to show our students. And I should say that the college will have a mixture. We want Japanese students, of course, but also to reach out to the world and bring international students here too. So in the field of design, having that diversity is incredibly important. They have different cultures and backgrounds and experiences. So for the internationals, it's like I want to show them Japan and get them to fall in love the same way I did and stay here and bring different qualities to it. And I know that in the future that could be a challenging question. It's like it's not every nation is going through a slightly challenging situation in terms of immigration, but I think it's important to show the world Japan. And for the Japanese students, I want to show them the differences in international experiences and thinking as well. So the college itself becomes this incredible sharing space where students can see the wonders of the region, but also share their own specialities and experiences too. It's going to need careful crafting, how to make sure we keep a very unique culture, but also have this very diverse cohort and teaching staff too. So it is a real challenge, and
Thank you, Miles. So before get into the kind of college education things, I'm really curious about the what kind of value do we have in Japanese society. In this morning session, we have so many keywords as like stability or resilience and the power of community, kind of trust, and as a kind of Japanese unique shared core value. So we have got design professional educational leaders here. So I really want to have kind of keywords. So how you define our Japanese uniqueness or competency in terms of kind of power of creativity or power of design. So please give us 3 words, 3 kind of shared value or core value from your imagination. Miles?
I can start. Well, is that easy? One of the key, often in the development team, one of the key words we often talk about in terms of Japanese culture is humbleness. And I think that we often talk about that in the sense of we want our students to become, societal change makers, but in a very humble way, not to force, change on people, but rather to bring people with them. And I think that's in the sense of we imagine our students being quite entrepreneurial and going out and creating their own enterprises and activities simply because they can't find anyone in the field. They're doing something unique. And we don't, I think maybe this is a generalization, but the kind of classic Californian Silicon Valley startup culture seems to be kind of maybe a bit greedy. It's about success and, having the biggest IPO and getting the richest. But I think there's a very different attitude to business here in Japan. I would love our students to realize that, making change over the longer term and having different ways of measuring success in a humble way is a really powerful idea. Sorry, that was 1 word, 2, 3, I'll come back to you the second and third,
You've taken humility, so I'll give you my 3, which are attentive, so attentiveness to detail, but also attentiveness to relationships. I'll come back to relationship. Actually, no, so I think relationships is really big. People have already mentioned nemawashi, several times today, but in design at the moment, one of the shifts that's been integral, I think, to design continuing to be successful in change making is attentiveness to relationships. So there was a model of the designer on high, working with policymakers on high, going, all right, we're going to do this. And you might think about urban planning, for example, or healthcare. But we've really shifted in both practice and especially in education to co-creation, co-design. So there's a humility, it's about listening, but really a shifted designer is facilitator, facilitating expert users or people with lived experience in co-creating solutions which will be rooted in place, rooted in culture, and likely to be more effective in a variety of measures, whether it's economic, health and well-being outcomes, societal outcomes, and so on. So my third word is rooted, like rooted in place, rooted in culture.
First, I think is the interdependence, which is relevant with whatever I said previously about the interrelationship with the nature, with the built environment. So that's one thing. And another thing is the indiscriminate knowledge, which is like a Buddhist term, but if you think of some of those Japanese crazy people bringing the dead eyeball to the funeral, and that is the suggestion of how Japanese perceive the notion of death, even in the non-human agents. Dead eyeball robot brought to the temple to be what? to remove the soul from the robot for the recycling, maybe? I don't know. Repair? I think it's an incredibly interesting thing to see in a global perspective. And third, I think, is the extension of that. Its model. It's a bit difficult to understand, but when you talk about prototypes, I mean, everyone talks about prototypes. So to make the successful product or service, you make loads of prototypes. So prototypes is there to sort out your ideas or to make the polished prototype before the final product to test your ideas carefully. But the models is very different. If you talk about business models, it's quite ambiguous thing. But if you think about the architectural models, it's the representation of very different things to the full-scale architectural buildings. But we can still understand and appreciate what the architect is trying to do with this model. And for some reason, as far as I'm concerned, this accepting and understanding and enjoying the model is almost like a cultural practice. And even if it will not be realized in the real world, still people understand and appreciate what if this can be in reality, and so on and so forth. So accepting this concept of the model may be quite interesting. I mean, for these creative leaders, we are not designers and creatives are not there only to make prototypes to deliver the goods and services into the market. We are also there to create ideas, explore new ideas, new ways of thinking. And to be able to do that, model is a really interesting sort of concept, or the ways of doing to engage with audience or engage with the stakeholders to collectively discuss the better future forward.
Thank you. So let us think about how we can leverage that kind of shared core value to create a kind of new type of leadership education here in Japan. So Sarah, you mentioned about kind of power of relationship or attention to detail, so on and so on. And then you write brilliant books, designing modern Japan, and then so on and so on. So as a perspective, as a kind of professional about the kind of historian perspective, how you could depict or paint the bigger picture, how we can draw out the new type of creative leadership education here in Japan?
No, that's such a good question, and thanks for mentioning the book. I have a few different hats that I put on depending where I am. I'm also a historian, and yeah, so I wrote a book published a book a few years ago, really about the way that creative practitioners, the way that designers have worked with policymakers, local community stakeholders to really thrive and to support communities to thrive through really turbulent times. So if you think back to the early years of the Meiji period with incredible economic shifts, there were all sorts of medical and health challenges, there was real societal disturbance, there was civil war. How did communities not just sort of survive, but thrive? I'd argue that a lot of the answer was designers figuring out how to partner with local communities to create change for the better. And at that time, a lot of it was through transforming manufacturing. Some of it, so creating new products for different markets, working differently with local materials, working differently with supply chains and relationships. Some of it was also about design education and creating what were, for the time, really innovative models of design education. And what's interesting, and I'll come back to this, a lot of them were running in parallel. So you'd have a new design education initiative, like a technical school or vocational school, and you'd still have an apprenticeship. And a lot of it was night school. And there were all sorts of tensions, right? So you can imagine if you're a master, you're like, I don't want my apprentices going off to night school. I want to teach them my way, right? Because, learning by watching, in an apprenticeship like I did through music is really different than sitting in a classroom or a workshop and everybody's sawing away or painting together. So going back, I think, to the question, there's so much I think that we can learn from looking at these earlier moments of turbulence, and going back to the questions around Pax Japonica, right, that were raised in the first session this morning. We are in a moment of sort of openness here in Japan, as well as regional and global instability. What the Meiji period did in a really subtle way was draw on that rootedness. So draw on traditions, draw on practices, draw on relationships. So I guess I would go back to that. I may have wandered from the question a little bit, but there is a lot, so something like the learning by watching, not asking questions, watching, learning through the body. There are kinds of ways of learning that are practice-based that we have not necessarily been part of, design education, or design education is very theoretical without the learning. So I think there's a real opportunity to connect those two. And to me, it sounds like that's what you're planning to do. Hopefully I haven't wandered too far from the question.
Thank you, Sara. Maurice, you mentioned about humbleness. And then if we imagine the new creative leadership education in the US or in the UK, maybe we wouldn't take humbleness as a keyword to drive our education aspiration, right? So how do you leverage humbleness to define your education here in Japan?
Okay, so you reminded me, maybe I missed a really key part of the college explanation, which was this isn't about creating more industrial designers or graphic designers. It's an issue-focused program. So we want the students who are interested in things like climate change or the future of education or the future of food or social justice. So these are things that are hopefully will be economically rewarding for the students and they can have a career in it. But it's the primary goal is to help society. So it's really important that their motivation is that way round. And I think that humbleness, that's what we mean by humbleness. They're ultimately driven by creating social change, positive, transformative change, equitable change for other people around them. So rather than their own kind of self-centered reward, they're rewarded by positive change to other people. So I think that's the mindset that we want to achieve, and somehow in the curriculum we need to introduce that. So we have elements in the curriculum that we're calling facilitating change making, which are little checkpoints and reflective moments for the students to keep coming back to this fundamental goal of issue-based societal transformation. So I think it's not something that you sit in front of a lecture for. In fact, we'll have no lectures. They're all active learning and project-based learning activities. But it's something that you gradually build up through experiences of doing that kind of experiential style of learning. So, yes, it's going to be quite different.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, humbleness is probably one of Japanese attractiveness for for the outsiders, and 50% of students are from outside of Japan. So maybe education of humbleness is going to be very interesting topic for educators.
Yes, yeah. And I think to Sarah's point about rootedness, is the humbleness comes from the a culture of several thousand years of development, isn't it? It's not a sudden thing. So, yeah, being able to really expose the international students in particular to the full depth of Japanese culture, get them, understanding all the slightly mysterious things that happen in Japan and the philosophical, cultural and religious things that have deep meaning, to Daijiro's point about, Buddhist philosophy. It's like all of that can be incredibly useful to like opening their eyes to a different style of life, basically.
Yeah, in a lineup of creative education in the world, maybe humbleness would be one of the strong differentiators from the front learner of the world. So.
Can I just quickly come in and say, I think that ties to the point about co-design and facilitation. And it's an incredible advantage, right? So if you're coming in with humility from the start, given where design is around working with communities or supporting communities rather than top-down, it's a real advantage.
Okay. Daijiro, you mentioned about the very unique perspective about nature, and we actually, find a spirit in the robots even. And then that is probably tightly connected with our probably inherent thinking as like yaoyorozu thinking, or so. I think that the connectivity with society and nature is quite different from the Western style. So how do you use or utilize or leverage that kind of things to enhance the educational experience for the students?
Sure. Yeah. I think it comes down, at the end of the day, it comes down to the issues of how we understand the cosmology or the worldview. So as we try and promote, for example, circular design for the sake of the social sustainability and environmental sustainability, then you are prone to look at the things like the plants, weeds, insects, and microorganisms, and so on and so forth. But as long as they are like, how can I say, they are the subject of designing, then you are destined to go to the wrong direction. If we are trying to co-design the world together with all those non-human agents, then we may need to come up with very different ways of designing, ways of understanding design, maybe. So I think this unique from the Frontrunners bit, this Japanese OS system of the indiscriminate knowledge or the yaorozu no kami kind of ways of thinking is really interesting, because it's very, very different from the Christianity-oriented operating system from the start. Yeah, so I think that is going to be the really interesting starting point.
Yeah, we have some keywords from our conversation, and let's zoom out a bit. Yeah, we talked a lot about Japanese unique core value and culture, but when we think about the more look around the world, we have so many creative initiatives from leader universities and colleges. So could you, if you have any kind of good example, which university or college start kind of new creative leadership education in the world? Sarah, do you have any example?
Maybe I can.
Miles? Yeah, please.
Yeah, because we've done our competitor review, of course. Yeah. So this kind of program isn't completely unique. There are a number of creative institutions that are working on similar things. There's a university in Singapore that's doing a very similar course, but it's in a design program. So it doesn't have access to all that wide disciplinary knowledge from philosophy to engineering to medicine. So it's designers trying to do the similar thing without kind of backing it up with a deeper knowledge. Stanford University's actually redesigned its design program in a similar kind of philosophy, but in more of a linear way, because it's a major inside a bachelor's, not a 5-year program. So there's less time. You choose what kind of design you want to do. You choose a domain like the environment, and then you have a selection of classes to support that. But I think in terms of like the ambition of scope and the ambition of change, then this program is still quite unique. So yeah, we want to have like-minded thinkers and educators around the world to talk to about pushing the boundaries of design in this way. So yeah, we very much want to know what's out there and that's similar.
Sarah, do you have any?
I'm feeling trapped because I can't be humble. But so the one that comes to mind is the one that I love, which is the one that I teach on. But that is really not humble to bring it up. So I might beg all of your pardon and discuss it anyways, because I didn't set it up, and it's one reason I moved to RMIT were these programs. But the masters that I teach on design, innovation, technology is a transdisciplinary master's. So it's there are students and staff members from sound design, landscape architecture, systems, planning, policy, art, electronics, engineering. So it's really wide. The students are coming from all of those backgrounds, as well as law, social work, aerospace engineering. It's all action learning, to Miles's point, in groups with community partners. And that might be a major primary industry, which has a polluted site, which they are trying to figure out what to do with, and what you do with the post-industrial community. So our students will go and work with that community and with the company. Or it might be a project around at-risk mothers in maternal care. So in women and baby hospitals, trying to understand how to reach women who might put off going to the doctor because of particular fears to do with their migration status or something like that. So tackling wicked problems in real time in transdisciplinary groups. We don't tell them how to do it. They can pick whatever discipline they want. They have to learn the tools. We're there to support them. And it's all led by the community partners. So they're understanding design in the service of communities and getting those technical skills. And there's been a lot of discussion around AI, rightly so. We do use, the students we all use, we're in that sort of breaking the tools category. So we're early adopters trying to break things, but we're also skeptical, and there's also a lot of social innovation going on. Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you for letting me be not humble. But I love that particular program.
Right. Dajiro, do you have any example?
I have taught at the different universities, like I said, and Kyoto University Design School was a bit like Tokyo College for Design, but it kind of was not successful because it really had no design department. Kyoto University still has no design department, but still, yet they have the design school. So they can't really teach. So that was a huge problem. So whilst it was trying to promote interdisciplinary entrepreneurs, creatives, and designers type of people, but still, it wasn't super difficult. It was super difficult. So once I moved out from there and started working at Keio University, respectively, then I realized that it's becoming more, much easier. But still, because of the lack of the structure, because it was a liberal arts college, it's super difficult to explain and engage with the real industry-led collaborative projects, which requires the delivery of the final outcomes in particular forms. So when it comes to the liberal arts college, interdisciplinary creative endorsement or education, single-handed education program or research was super difficult. So my expectation is that it's going to be the collaborative effort on the interdisciplinary design program led by the design department. Otherwise, it's going to be super difficult to create, have the basics, develop the applied research, and then go to the clinical kind of research and design area for the actual implementation to the public.
Yeah, thank you. So before Q&A time, I really want to have advices from Sarah and Daijiro to Miles. So advice to make this college unique and impactful.
Set up the project so that the students have to fail, because failure and risk-taking, the ability to fail, is integral to the success, I think.
Thank you, Daijiro.
I think, yeah, the Sarah's idea, I can't disagree more. I think it goes with the setting the Japanese design museum. So the failure should be exhibited, the design for debate should be exhibited, and also design for the actual commercial application should be exhibited as well. But if we keep it inside university, we will not be able to generate interesting sort of ideas or disseminate ideas to the public. So it should go with the design museum to amplify the power of the creatives.
Thank you. Miles, do you have any words?
My response, yeah. I can fail lots of students, no problem. Leave it to me. And I'll show the world their failures too. That's okay. Now, these are very good points, and I'm hoping that you guys can provide ongoing advice in the future. Maybe I'll close with one thing. Someone sent me an article from the Financial Times last week which said, why designers abandoned their dreams of changing the world? And I'm like, did we? I find if that's a story that's building momentum, that's a sad reflection of design, because we are very much about changing the world through the lens of design. So I hope that we in the future can put to bed this kind of this movement and actually have very positive change on society.
Thank you. Okay, so let us open the floor for Q&A. And please raise your hand and identify yourself and specify your question for whom. All right, so this gentleman.
My name is Muto, thank you very much. And you told me that the Japanese strength is about the humbleness, attentiveness, indiscriminate knowledge, cosmology, yaoyorozu no kami. So how these skills or capabilities can be translated to become the global leader and lead the global? So that is the question.
For whom? Do you have any?
I do. Do you want to?
Sorry.
Are you asking the question to
Anybody?
anyone?
By one person.
Go on.
For example, it's obvious, if you try and redesign supply chain management from that kind of perspective, then you are including different types of stakeholders. So when it comes to the context of service design management, I think it's about inclusion of the stakeholders that has been previously excluded.
My philosophy is that I don't want the college to be a kind of linear progression, like, okay, this class will teach you this, and therefore you'll come out of the class and have learnt this, but rather that this mixture of very different perspectives, learnings, and knowledge will filter into your subconscious. And I think designers have always known that, by being curious and finding out lots of things, you be a better designer. You understand more. You have more creative thoughts. So we will expose the students, to these subjects and these topics, but not in a definitive way, so that they can then put this learning together in different ways and construct themselves. We'll have 100 students per year and 100 different types of graduate. So no one person will be the same because they'll put the knowledge and experience together in a unique pattern for themselves.
I think that combination of characteristics supports trust building. And trust creates a secure environment in which people feel safe to try things out, take risks, and also, I suppose, amplify success.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for a very interesting discussion. My question is directed to any and all of you, Professors Mizuno, Teasley, or Pennington. So I've heard it said before that like Japan might not be able to compete, for example, with OpenAI or some of these developers outside of Japan, right? Maybe not in the processes and starting from scratch, but Japan is a place with an excellent kind of ability to finish and polish, especially with regards to Japanese values, humility. There are a number of universities here which are based maybe not in traditional Japanese culture, but which I think share some affinity. I'm thinking of like ICU, Sophia University, based on the Jesuit model, and APU, some others, right? Japanese society places importance on thinking like magokoro or omotenashi, ikigai, these things. And at least with universities like Sophia, which is my own educational background in Japan, there is this kind of humanitarian, other-centered perspective that's built into the system. So their idea of the ratio studiorum is that you're educated, but you're also taught to develop this conscience. How can Japan and Japanese universities leverage the training in conscience, which is particular to Japan, that communitarian aspect, in creating excellent design thinkers? Yeah, thank you.
Previously, these schools offered design theory, but I think design theory is insufficient. I think what we are witnessing is the rise of a new kind of designing, theoretical design as opposed to design theory. So that it's practice-led, but still engaging with the theory to deliver alternatives to development, for example. As long as we just talk about it, it doesn't have to be, sort of taught at the design school. I mean, design school is there to embody the knowledge. I think that differentiates the, say, the Sophia and the COD at the Tokyo University. So, I think designing for the different worldview is the kind of thing that the U-Tokyo can do.
I just want to very quickly pick up on your first point, which is the classic Japan. Japan is not so great at starting things, but amazing about scaling up things, right? Polishing things. U-Tokyo design is all about solving that first bit. So it's exactly, we want people to start things. So, through learning about creative process, through learning about wide disciplinary knowledge, we want them to have new ideas and to get over that, that may be that generic problem somehow.
It was interesting that, the universities that you mentioned have, like you say, that long tradition now of, short in Japanese time, but long in modern time, of that social consciousness or that, dedication to contribution to society, as well as that liberal arts model. So I guess being aware of, not just at, at Sophia and at ICU, but those movements in Japan, like community associations, religious associations, that communitarian support. I think there's some really interesting opportunities to really sort of drill into that. I think that's one other thing to note is just those universities also have a good track record in gender, and also in students from really diverse educational backgrounds. And I will note, this is, we probably all know that statistic about Japan is 118th out of 148 in gender pay gap this year. So I think there's a real opportunity to address some of those structural challenges through the way the education is done as well.
Thank you. probably, okay. Mezawa-san.
Thank you. In the beginning of the session, Sarah mentioned that Japan produced a lot of great design the world loved, but at the same time, the design schools are rated rather modestly in this country. Why has Japan been able to produce such great designers without having good institutions?
I feel like I should answer that one just to make sure, especially going on the record, there are great institutions. There are brilliant institutions, and I've experienced them, as a student and a visiting lecturer, and also teaching sessionally. I think it's more around reputation internationally, and that's around being known internationally, and that's around cultivating those relationships and maintaining those international reputations. And so its reputation is from cultivating international relationships, and I think that's something that Japanese design universities have been excellent at the undergraduate and postgrad level, so at the student level. So students leave, I think, often with a real love for their experience, but it's not maintained institutionally. So the rankings don't reflect the actual quality.
You could say they're being too humble, right?
Yes.
The rankings are a blunt tool, and you basically have to get out and self-promote yourself into the rankings. It's not a very democratic or fair process, so a little bit less humble for the institutions would help.
One of the obvious reasons why the Japanese design schools are not ranked high is because of the number of the papers, academic papers published in English. Typically, the design schools, art and design schools in Japan, professors are not research-led. They're heavily practice-led. So the art and design schools become like more of the professional schools. Therefore, the international research presence is quite low, unfortunately. So I think that kind of contributes to the ranks. But that's changing gradually.
Right papers. Okay. All right. To wrap up this conversation, please give us a final comment to the audience. From Sarah.
I think it's a really exciting opportunity, in design education in Japan more widely at the moment. So, the instability, as we were hearing, but also, a point underlined this morning in the first session was around stability and slowness and incremental change, and how Japan is incredibly strong in a number of areas which are highly valued at the moment. And so I think, as I was saying, things like trust and relationships are important for being able to take risks. So, not just Miles, your new initiative, but Kyoto Institute of Technology and all of the art and design universities and the design programs in universities, etc. And I should say also design education in secondary schools and in primary schools, because we've been talking about universities, but this is a lifelong learning thing. So I think the particular conditions in Japan are really exciting. And I suppose I will close on lifelong learning because there's a tendency to focus on undergrad. As the Japanese government has also really been noting, learning is lifelong. There are opportunities for reskilling, upskilling, transformation, and contribution through that, whether we're 8, 18, or 80. So yeah, huge opportunity there.
So I'll finish with the college's motto, which is see the world through design, then change it. And what we mean by that is we want the students to observe the world, to understand it through the lens of design. So looking for issues, opportunities, or challenges. But most importantly, the full stop, then change it. That understanding it is not sufficient. Actually affecting transformative, equitable change is the ultimate goal.
In the design world, there's been a lot of discussion going on the concept of the ontological design. We design designs us back. This sort of rotation is going to the very wrong direction, and everyone feels it. So we need to reorient the way we design, the very understanding of what it means by designing. And seems like the kind of experience I'm having today all comes down to what Japan can do from its very unique perspective. So I'm very looking forward to what UTokyo can do in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we actually have a emergence of AI, and I think the creativity is going to be maximized by use of AI. So I think there are coming up so many different types of new design, and the design is going to be engaged with society and people, but for equitable future. So yeah, 2027, UTokyo will open the new school, new College of Design. So we will be looking at that transition, and then maybe this is going to create a new perspective for new creative leaders here in Japan. Thank you for all, and then please give you a big hand to the panelists. Thank you.